Welcome, everybody, to The Real Frame of Mind presents an interview with Cameron Greco, an up-and-coming actor and filmmaker. Um, in the new Tim Burton film, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which actually opens today, September 30th. Hey, Cameron, how you doing?
Hi, Scott. I'm doing great. I'm just at FSU right now where I go to school, and I'm happy to be doing this with you.
Excellent, excellent. I should have called you the prettiest boy, though. That's your character's name, right?
Yeah, that is my character's name, and I'm the first antagonist in the film in the beginning two scenes
Excellent.
to the main character, Asa Butterfield.
Nice, nice. So if you could, in your own words, tell us just a little bit about yourself, kind of where you grew up and, sort of segue into what you're doing now.
Yeah, of course. I grew up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and at around the age of about 15, our family picked up and moved to Sarasota, Florida, and I was acting for a while, probably since I was 11, in the Chicago, Milwaukee area, and it all started one day when I was listening to the radio with my mom, and they had like an ad come on for one of those generic like John Robert Powers cereal commercial things. You know, the kind of stuff that you would normally think would be like a scam or whatnot. So with my mom's permission, I kind of called up and was like, "Hey, I'd like to schedule an interview." And they asked how old I was. I was just like, "Well, I'm 11." And they laughed and they were like, "Can we talk to a parent?" So I mean, the rest is history there. I did like the audition, and I did acting classes for a while at John Robert Powers, and a lot of people will box John Robert Powers and call it a scam. And what John Robert Powers is it's an organization that is meant to find young talent and train them, and they almost do it in the way of like a puppy mill, in a way. Like if I could provide an analogy,
Yeah.
is they take all these kids on, and they probably know that there's a good chance that either they're not going to pursue acting as a profession someday, or nothing's going to happen out of it. So I did that with full-on passion, and it was never my parents ever wanting me to get into acting. It was always me. I've always wanted to. I mean, I would role play with my sister at like 3 years old. We dress up as like doctors and just do crash cards and stuff, and it was just always in me. So I did that, and I would do as I got older, I would do short films for like Columbia College in Chicago, and about a year or two into acting, I starred in a short film at Columbia, and that was like my first role ever. And from there, I did a few more shorts, and that's when we moved to Florida. And at that point, I thought my acting career was done. Because we were moving away from a big city, and in Florida, the industry is not as pumping as it is in like Atlanta or LA or Chicago. So I kind of got discouraged, but I still kept my representation in my agency in Chicago and Miami. And then, about a year into it, I got an audition for, this was probably this was in my 11th grade, so a lot of stuff went by, a lot of years without doing anything of auditioning and not getting rejected. And the volume of auditions in Florida are far and few in between, because the industry is so it's picking up here, but it's not really popping.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the whole ordeal actually leading up to you landing the role. And actually, yeah. I was finding it quite interesting that you were saying that towards Florida is actually a lot lighter in the acting work than somewhere around Milwaukee, which is a bigger city, or you said Chicago as well. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's actually it's just because Chicago there's a lot of commercial work and feature film opportunities in that area. There just is, and especially, actually in the area I'm in right now in northern Florida and almost Georgia, Atlanta is very busy right now for film work and media of that matter. There's a lot of studios moving to Atlanta because of the incentives
Right. Yeah.
For filming. And there's like Marvel just built a big production studio in Atlanta, so they're doing a lot more in the area. I think Florida is definitely going to grow. And you said leading up to the audition, it was kind of like one day I got like the normal email from my representation saying that I had an audition for a feature film and I needed to send it in to LA. I had to videotape it and send it in. And my parents weren't actually home, so I had my sister do it. And I read the lines and acted it, and did the audition like I normally would, and I sent it off. And I had I always have confidence and I'm passionate about it, but there's also that thing in the back of your head that's telling you that you're most likely going to get rejected from this. And then the next day I heard my dad called me up when I was in English class, and he's like, Cameron, Fox wants to see you. They want you for the new movie. And I was like,
That's
who's
awesome.
the director? And he's like Tim Burton. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? Is this a joke?
Right.
And the next that week was pretty cool. I got into contact with production from LA, and they sent me like all the paperwork and everything that I needed to get done, and they said they gave me a date when to go and get my fitting done for wardrobe and makeup, and to meet Tim and meet the fellow cast members and get used to talking to them. So I did that the week before we started shooting, and then we started right away the week after in South Florida shooting. I've actually shot with them for about a week. And it was the kickoff of the film. It was the kickoff of shooting for the entire thing, so it was very exciting. And that's basically the whole process of leading up to it. And my story is.
So backtracking a little bit to acting over the phone, how is that? Like, you're not in front of anybody. Is it awkward, or is it actually more comfortable?
It's very awkward. It's terrible. I hate it. You're getting videotaped by a cheap video camera that takes files that you can send off. On top of that, it's like, in some aspects it's like a normal audition because you have one reader, a person reading the lines to you, and you're acting with them basically, but you're talking to nothing.
Yeah.
And you're trying to you're stuck in one spot and you can't move, so you don't go off a frame. And you have to you just basically you go through your normal audition process of acting out the scene that you're given. And I would say some positive aspects to it is that you have that room for doing as many takes as you want and getting it perfect. But it's also better to do in-person auditions because you meet the casting director and they can tell who you are as a person. It's harder to tell through a video.
Right.
And you have more creative freedom if you do it in person.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and actually really interesting. So Cam, how was it the first time being on a real set? It was surreal. It was like a dream come true for me. I mean, from being on a real set, it's what I realized that I wanted to pursue for the rest of my life. It's what I love doing. And the first day was kind of like I got dropped off. Actually, on the week that we did fittings for makeup and costume and wardrobe, we drove up to the base camp, they call it, which was in South Florida, all right,
around the Tampa area, and Fox literally had rented out this just huge area, and my father and I drove up, and we got there to base camp, and it was just a ton of trailers and just of mobile workspaces just set up, and I'm talking about a ton. It looked like a big operation they had going, and we pulled in. They were like, rolled down the window. They're like, Cameron Greco, and I was just like, yeah. And they're like, come with me, and they took me away, and I got to meet the wardrobe designer for the movie, and she does most of Tim Burton's work. Colleen Atwood, she's just fantastic. And I did a wardrobe fitting with her, and then went and met the makeup stylist, and they did all that. So that was my first encounter with the big operation they had going on. And then fast forwarding to the first day of shooting, I was very tense. I wouldn't say nervous, but I was when you know it's this big of a production and they have this much money going into it, you got to perform, and you got to perform well.
Yeah, you feel a little pressure.
There's a lot of people counting on you to do this, you know. And my role isn't a huge role, but no matter what when you have dialogue in this magnitude of a film, you have to treat it as if you had dialogue throughout the whole film, even if you do have a small role, so you understand the story and understand where it's coming from. So I got to the film set, and they were just like, Cameron Greco, come with us, and I got back up into my wardrobe that I fitted a week earlier, and I met up with a good friend of mine now at the start of the movie, Asa Butterfield. I met him for the first time, and we kind of just started talking because our scene was together and getting to know each other, getting some chemistry. And the female counterpart to my role, Ella Wallisted, she plays the prettiest girl, and we just all kind of hung out for like an hour and a half before we started filming. And we went. They shuttled us in this black van, and all tinted out windows. Me, Asa, and Ella. They shuttled us to the film set. And we got to the film set, and there was this big abandoned grocery store that Fox rented out and reconstructed into a whole new department store, and it looked like they were building a new store, and it was incredible. People in the area actually were asking, like bystanders, they were asking, they had it all roped off, but there's a lot of people asking, like, when's the new store opening? Like, people thought it was a new store. Fox literally bought this area, and they turned it into a film set, and it literally looked like like if you were to walk into Walgreens.
Wow.
It was so real. Like, everything in there was so detailed down to like the smallest things, like the labels on the food, like everything was just. It is all made for this fantasy world, because Jake in the movie, he works for a company called Smart Aid, and that's like where his lame job is, you know.
Oh, okay.
And so we get to the film set, and Tim Burton pops out, and I'm just like, oh, here it is. This is him. And I didn't know what to expect at first, and he was just like this friendly, just. I mean, he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He's just like a Boy Scout you could compare it to. Like, he's just like super friendly, and he's definitely got a presence. And he like came up to me, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "Are you Cameron?" I'm like, "Yes." And he like shook my hand. He's like, "We're gonna have some fun today." And I didn't know what to expect, because like I always watch, like I've been a fan, but for as long as I can remember. Like, he's one of my favorite directors, and when I found out that I was going to be in one of his movies and working with him was just incredible. And so he kind of made the film set very welcoming, you know.
Yeah.
He has this aura about him that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel welcome. And when you get up to rehearse your scene, and that's what we did. So we got in, and he kind of explained what was happening, and I kind of knew because I read the script already. And we kind of did a small rehearsal of what was going to happen, and there was the cinematographer Bruno Delbano. He's fantastic. He's done a lot of good films, and you have a crew of like 100 people around you, and I was just at this point I was kind of it was very nerve-wracking, but it was exciting. It was like a good nervousness. Yeah. And I found my place. Like I found my safe place for acting, and I kind of blocked everyone out and put myself in this scene in the story, and focused on me, Ella, and Asa, and how we could bully this poor kid who lives in this ordinary world. kind of asks your input and how you feel about it, and how you and how like he makes you feel like you're part of the team, and that's what's great about him. You know,
Yeah.
he's not a director that is just absolutely in control, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. I mean, he's very open to your ideas because he wants that collaborative aspect to it.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. I've always was curious about a lot of these big name directors and how they're like behind the camera. You get a few special features on a Blu-ray or something, but to actually know someone and be actually directed by them, um, it's actually awesome. I guess one thing I would ask really quickly is, for people who have never been on a set and maybe don't watch as much, like, what is Tim Burton's approach to directing? Is like, is it just telling you where to stand? Is it telling you how to speak the lines, or how did he direct you personally?
He well, I feel like the directing experience started from when he first met me. You know, he got to see who I was as a person and how I acted, and we kind of got to understand each other for the time that we were with for the time that I was working with him. And when we started doing the rehearsals, you, of course, I mean, this is kind of standard. You kind of do your blocking and your movements throughout, and he kind of works with. He at the time he was like checking lenses and like looking through his director's cam of what lenses he should use and tell the cinematographer to use. And one thing about Tim, he's very precise, and he's very everything has to be perfect. So, not to spoil too much, but like in the opening scenes, we kind of we bully Asa, and he's stacking a tower of diapers, and we kind of go in there and knock it down. But like even this tower of diapers had to be so precise and symmetric for Tim. And so that directing started there, and with the set itself, and he would basically he would tell me the general area where my lighting was and where my safe spots were for coverage of the camera and what the areas I can stay in. And he basically just told me what he wanted me to do. He was like, Cameron, he's like, Cam, I need you to, he's like, I would, you guys, he kind of explained the scene. It was just in more detail. It's just like, you guys are going to walk in nice and natural, maybe touch a few candies, do whatever, make it look natural. And you're gonna do the line, and I had to throw these diapers at Asa into a sweet spot into the tower of diapers, and I would just kind of double check with Tim every take and just ask him like where he wanted me to throw it, and he would just kind of say, like this, like throw it here, throw it there, and so we would run through a take and it would be great, and he would be like, all right, perfect, we'll go to the next coverage, and then they would like switch the coverage to Asa or Ella, and my coverage was actually last, so if I remember correctly, we started, I mean, it's not a big deal, but I think we did start coverage with Asa, and we worked to Ella, and then me finally, and Tim, so basically Tim was just, he told us his vision and what he wanted us to do and what we could bring to the table. He was absolutely amazing and friendly about it as well.
Well, that's awesome. So you were talking about your relationship with Ella and Asa, but I mean, there's a lot of big names on the film, like Ava Green and also Sam Jackson.
Yes.
How would you say your relationship with these stars was, or do you still have relationships with them?
Yeah, actually I do. So in London, when I went to the CMC screening, the cast and crew screening of the movie, I got to mingle and talk with everyone. But from when my first time was on set, I met Asa and Ella and I have been pretty good friends since. She lives in Miami, and we've met up and talked a few times and hung out. And Asa and I, we kind of had this chemistry. Like when I met him, he was kind of like one of my friends, and since then we stayed in contact, and we've hung out multiple times. They came back to Florida in April to do some more shooting for the movie, some last minute add-ins. And Asa called me up. He's like, Cam, you want to hang out in St. Pete? So I drove up from Sarasota and we hung out. And just when I was in London, we we just hung around the city, and we just jammed out in his apartment, played some drums and stuff. But
That's
bass is
awesome.
great, and I'm looking forward to our friendship and what we can do in the future.
So you said you saw the premiere in London. How was that?
It was very cool. I mean, it was in one of the biggest theaters I've ever been to in my life. I think it is the biggest theater. It was about 1,000 seats, and it was in a place called Leicester Square at the Odeon Theater, and it's one of the biggest theaters in London. And it basically almost looks like a theater, as if you were to go see a play, a stage play. It's
Okay.
huge. And the cast was there, and the crew, and all the kids, and we went in, and we of course we all dressed nice, and we went in, and the assistant director kind of did like a beginning speech, and she was just like, Tim actually couldn't make it to the beginning of the screening when the movie started, and so she was just like, Tim's doing press right now, but she kind of went through her speech. Her name's Caterline, and she's just great. She's a very smart woman, and a very good person to work with. And she kind of just gave a small speech saying it truly is a great Tim Burton film. I want everyone to enjoy it. We watched it, and it was it was another surreal experience for me. I was in shock because I was seeing this come together for the first time with all the people that made it possible. And we got to the end of the film, and then when the credits, I think this was just for our screening, but after the film, before the credits started rolling, they said that this film created over 15,000 jobs.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and then they rolled the credits, and it was just, I was in shock. I mean, seeing my name seeing my name on the cast list and the credits among all those great actors and my heroes was just a dream come true. But it's kind of it's a good beginning to something beautiful, I think.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, I guess I haven't seen the film yet. I'm actually really excited to go see it. But I mean, you have to. I mean, you probably see a film differently than, say, I would from actually being on the set and seeing it sort of unfold before your eyes. Would you say that's true? It's probably a different experience being in the film.
Yes, absolutely. It's along with, I mean, on top of me having a friendship with Asa and Ella, and talking to a lot of the people in the film, and seeing the scenes actually, in my scenes in particular, seeing it being made and how it was made and who made it, makes me see the movie in a different lens, so to speak. I still get lost in the beauty and the magic of the movie and the story, but I realized the work and effort it took to create this masterpiece of Tim's, and I'm definitely biased to it. I mean, I think it's a wonderful movie. It's one of my favorite Tim Burton movies, and that's really like the main whole of it is I see it in a way where I kind of just realize, it's almost like in the way of a filmmaker I see it, but I also see it in the way of based on an emotional standpoint.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's next for you?
I'm gonna try to finish college as quick as I can, and I have I'm hoping that this movie will be a good exposure for me, and it's definitely that's what I'm counting on. I mean, I could have gotten a small role in another film that would have had a theatrical release, but that film wouldn't have been a Tim Burton film. It wouldn't have
Right.
had that prestige and that there's tons of movies made every day, but only a few really stick around, and Tim Burton is one of those auteurs. And so what's next for me is, I mean, I'm going to take it step by step. I'm into film production at FSU, and I love making my own films and writing my own scripts. And I think acting and directing and screenwriting they coincide with each other. And I think good actors make good directors, and vice versa. and I'm gonna take it step by step and try to better my representation and keep my connections close and keep auditioning, and hopefully I can get some more roles, and that's what I'm excited for.
And that's Florida State University for those listeners who don't know what FSU is. But that's actually really just to get into that school, I think is a feat in itself. So congratulations on that. And where can our listeners find your works besides hitting the theaters this weekend?
Yeah, you can find my work on you can go on IMDb and look me up, of course, but you can also go on to my Vimeo. It's just Cameron Christopher Lee Greco, and you can see some of my short films on there that I've made. And I also am in current pre-production of a feature film of my own that I've been writing with a buddy of mine for about 2 years. And we started a GoFundMe. It's www.gofundme.com/LocketFilm, and it's a crime drama. And I'm trying to make it a brilliant thing, and we have high hopes for it.
Yeah, we will put that link in the description of this video or this this podcast. But Cameron Greco, The Prettiest Boy, and Tim Burton's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which opens up today, September 30th. Go see it. Cameron, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm glad you had me.